Say hello, Jonathan.
Hello, Jonathan. Are we live?
We've pressed the live button.
We're live.
I don't think there's anybody with us yet. That's not a problem. Let's just have a quick gander. It's more tea, I think. Events.
It's Dick and Dom. Dick and Dom in the house.
What are you laughing at?
Dick and Dom.
Someone's saying
Or
quite
is it
right
Dom
here.
and Dumber? I'm not sure.
Don't, you're stealing all my lines.
Hey?
You're stealing all my lines.
Definitely Dom and Dumber.
What? I'm not even close as tall as Daddy. I'm not even as close.
Is that live? Liam Steadman is watching. Hi Liam, how are you? Right, could do with some privacy if that's all right.
Excuse me.
Got to, I can't.
Gonna hang out the window.
Right, so we've got Liam watching. Just do an introduction if that's all right. A little bit of a false start there. Not quite sure if I've got the technology working right, but I think it's working all right. Just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Tony. I'm an estate agent in and around the Grantham area. Been so now for, well, 16 years or so. I'm joined by Jonathan Saint. Jonathan, you've got your own mortgage brokerage.
Yeah, so I'm Jonathan from Mortgages Designed by Jonathan Saint, working through Mortgage First. I've been a mortgage broker now, well, about 10 years I've been a mortgage broker, but in financial services the last sort of 15, 16 years, Tony.
Great stuff, okay. We asked for some questions earlier this week. We've had a couple come in as well. But before we go on to that, we have been called all sorts this week, so don't know how we want to do this, but we've been called Dick and Dom, Laurel and Hardy, Chuckle Brothers, and many others, I'm sure, which you can probably add into the comments if you want to. This is an open live stream. We don't know how it's going to go, but if you've got any questions, you can put them into the chat. I think we can see them from this end as well. So if you've got any questions at all, just let us know and we'll do our best to answer them either now or we'll come back to you after. But obviously the point of this is to try and make life a little easier for people who perhaps don't understand who to turn to when they've got questions, simple questions perhaps, about mortgages, and you often find it then you have conversations with people and they're not sure where to turn to.
Absolutely, yeah.
In fact, there was one this morning, a lady got in touch via email the other day and sort of said, look, I'm sick and tired of renting. Can you talk to me a little bit about the costs of buying a home? So we've been able to sort of continue conversation and put something together and sort of introduce to Jonathan, introduce to a conveyancer, get a conveyancing quote, understand the stamp duty liability of a first time buyer beyond £300,000 and many other things. But I think a lot of the time people struggle to understand who to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think especially with first-time buyers, it's having that confidence as well, and it's not knowing who to turn to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's...
Well, having worked in a very, very major agent in the area,
Yeah.
a lot of people I spoke to about visiting offices would almost say they're very sort of an intimidating environment to walk in and just ask questions.
Yeah.
It might be 12, 18, 24 months before they're planning on buying, but there's stuff you can do there, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. There's affordability we can go through. There is, discussing how to actually get yourselves in a position to move forwards in the future. That's what I'm about, and I know that's what you're about, Tony, as well, isn't it? Is making sure that people are in that correct position, and when the time comes, that they can proceed forwards with it.
Yeah.
I get clients all the time concerned about credit files, for instance. And what they need to do to get their credit files in a position whereby they can move forwards in the future. So, from my point of view, it's all about providing the right advice at the right time. And again, I know that's a sentiment you share as well, don't you?
Absolutely.
And it's about doing the right things at the right time and getting people in that position.
Yeah. So
moving
first-time
forwards.
buyer, for example, might
Yeah.
be thinking about buying in 12 months' time or 6 months' time.
Yeah.
There are things they can be doing now to make their credit file look more appealing to a lender. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. So, number one, if you're not on the electoral roll, get yourselves on the electoral roll. That can have an impact, with certain lenders.
Yeah.
So I'd highly recommend doing that.
Yeah.
Number two, sorry, is actually...
Let me stop you. He's good with numbers, I promise you.
And number two is actually accessing your credit report. Now, my advice would be to access checkmyfile.com. Okay, the reason I say that is because it extracts data from the 3 main credit reference agencies.
Is that free?
I believe there's a 30-day free trial.
Okay, great.
After that, I believe it's $14.99 per month, the same as Experian. But what it does is it extracts data from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion.
Yeah.
And they're the 3 main ones that lenders look at. So that's what I'd recommend to do. But I've had it this week actually, where I've suggested that a client gets their credit report, and I'm more than happy to look at that. But it just makes sure that you're in that position, strong position moving forwards.
Good stuff. And obviously, being a young man of many years ago, the days of sort of betting on football and stuff like that on a Saturday were very prevalent, but you'd go into the bookies and put 10 quid on your accumulator, which would fail by about 2 minutes past 3. So, but obviously a lot of lads now will often turn to an accumulator on a weekend every 5 quid every week, 10 quid every week, or whatever. And that gets taken negatively, doesn't it, by a lot of lenders?
It can do. It can do. It depends. It depends which lender.
Okay.
They all view it slightly differently. But what I would suggest is, again, it comes back to forward planning. So if you know that you're looking to get a mortgage, then you need to get your bank statements in order.
Right.
Cut out the betting potentially for a few months before.
So how many months of bank statements would you typically want to see, or a lender want to see?
Well, again, it varies between lender. So some lenders may only want 1 month, some lenders might want 3 months.
Okay.
And especially for first-time buyers at the high loan to values,
Yeah.
the lenders might want sort of 3 months bank statements.
Just to put my own mind, obviously we all use contactless payments these days, but if you've got contactless payments repetitively for takeaways and food shopping and all the rest of it, are you better actually going to the cash point, drawing the money out and then spending the money rather than paying by card?
I don't think that's an issue as such,
Okay.
in terms of, because lenders to a degree are human.
Yeah.
A lot of first-time buyers I meet, they live at home,
Yeah.
got very little outgoings, so they will have multiple takeaways a week. From that point of view, that's not something to be overly worried about. But things like betting, and if you're gambling quite a lot, multiple times per week, I would suggest, it's something that is cut back.
We don't hear so much about them anymore, but what about payday loans and things like that?
Yeah, payday loans are a no-no really, especially for first-time buyers with 5-10% deposit.
Yeah.
Even beyond that, lenders don't look very favourably on payday loans at all.
Okay.
Okay, I've had clients come to me in the past, and they've been advised by, Fred down the pub, who has told them to take out a payday loan because it will improve the credit rating. No, it doesn't. It has the opposite effect, because lenders are thinking, well, if you need to take out a payday loan, you obviously can't manage your money by doing that.
Okay.
So
But there is
there are other ways
Yeah.
you can improve that.
Okay. But there is truth in the fact that, if you've got a very little credit file, you could take out a small credit card, use it for filling the car up, and pay it off every month without fail.
Yeah, absolutely. To quote Martin Lewis, you pay it off in full every month.
Yeah.
But then again, I've had lots of first-time buyers in the past whereby they've not had any credit cards.
Okay.
And I was having this conversation only yesterday with a client. So I've had clients in the past, no credit cards. They run a bank account, so they've got a current account. more than likely got a mobile phone contract.
Yep.
Possibly on the council tax with the parents.
Yeah.
So all those things add up and improve your scoring with a lender. Okay. So you know, for any first-time buyers out there, don't feel like you have to get a credit card.
No.
You don't need to do that. There are other ways of doing it.
Okay. All right. No worries. There's a lot been going on obviously since January. Interest rates are on the rise to try and control inflation, which obviously is very high. The cost of living is rocketing with gas, electric prices and all the rest of it on the way up. What are lenders doing about that?
Well, lenders' affordability is is becoming. I've noticed with certain lenders their income multiples are reducing in light of that, because in the background, lenders' affordability calculators, they take into account they look at Office of National Statistics. I can't get my words out, Tony. Office of National Statistics figures. So obviously, with the cost of living increasing, then they will take that into account with affordability. So that's a big impact at the minute. There's people will see that rates are increasing with lenders as well. But one of the potential reasons for that is, lenders' timescales and how many applications they're getting in. So lenders use interest rates as a way of turning on the tap, turning off the tap. So if people are seeing interest rates rising, it's that could be a potential reason as well.
Okay, and then obviously with interest rates on the rise, that will affect people when it comes to things like remortgaging. How many people are currently in a fixed deal, typically, out of 10?
Well, I saw a statistic that 79% of people with mortgages are in a fixed rate deal at the moment. Okay. So, we were talking about it earlier. I saw an article, Rishi Sunak was pictures in the article, and I think it had the headline of, interest rate rises will cost people £1,000 a year on average. If you're in a fixed rate currently, then it won't cost you anymore because you're in that fixed rate until that end date. Okay. But obviously, if it's 79% in a fixed rate, that leaves 21% either on lender standard variable rate, they're on a base rate tracker product, or they're on a discounter rate or any other variable rate.
Okay.
So my advice to people is, if you're on a variable rate, speak with your broker. If it's not me, then somebody else to look at your options.
Now, how far in advance can a deal be fixed before the end of your mortgage variable deal? Your deal comes to an end?
Well, again, that varies between lender as well.
Okay.
So typically, lenders will allow you to secure a rate up to 6 months before.
Right, okay. So the chances are in 6 months' time interest rates will be higher than they are now.
Yes,
if your deal is coming to an end
yep.
in 6 months, within the next 6 months, you could possibly secure a deal now.
You can lock in that deal now.
Right, okay. Well, that's
which
quite
might be attractive to a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree.
But there's also one lender out there as well who will allow you to actually secure a deal 9 months in advance as well. Okay. I'm not suggesting that lender, has the best product overall, which fits circumstances or anything like that, but there is that option available.
Okay. You've got a little caveat to add into all this, haven't you? Because we're not allowed to give independent advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
so
generic.
This is all generic advice. If anyone requires bespoke one-to-one advice, then contact myself, or if it's advice on the property market, then speak to Tony. But this is all generic advice.
Okay. We have had some questions come in this week, which was interesting. So thank you very much for those who have sent me.
Who have we got on, Tony? Anyway, who's tuning in?
Well, there's.
I know we've got Sharon.
I can see there's a number in this top corner. I can't make out. It's 4,004 million or. It's 4.
It's
at the
4.
At the minute, we've definitely got Sharon Galley watching. Sharon is really the third corner of our triangle, if triangles have corners. So, hi Sharon, thank you very much for tuning in. You did say you were going to, so really appreciate your support. And at some point, I'd like to get you on as well, where we can talk about conveyancing, particularly from the perspective of a seller, home seller, getting ready. or even a first-time buyer who's looking to get conveyancing indications on what they should be doing and everything else. And then my glorious wife, Sarah, or should I say my first wife, Sarah, she's watching as well. No doubt getting some jip from the kitchen.
I can't see my wife on there though.
I can't see the viewer list. I don't think it shows me the viewers. So if you're watching, you can drop a message and we'll know you're watching.
Yeah, Sam, if you're watching, just let me know.
She told me she was washing her hair. Anyway, we've had some questions come in this week, which I thought were quite interesting. So the first one is from somebody who's been reading my property blogs, which are kind of weekly, bi-weekly blogs about the Grantham property market. And the comment was very interesting, Tony. I do enjoy your property blogs. Here's a question. You say people with savings are more likely to sit on them. So what's your opinion on having work done, an extension, a new kitchen, etc.? Prices are very high at the moment. Obviously property prices are very high, but obviously tradespeople prices are high, and equally so are the materials. So do you take the plunge with your savings or sit it out and see if the market changes? Will people stop having work done? And what about the price of building materials? Is it better to extend or sell? I'll say one question, there's about 9 in there. But in my experience, let's look at it this way. £100 in the bank today, in a year's time, with inflation the way it is, isn't going to be £100. It will be in name, but not in value. It will be the equivalent of £90 to £95. In 5 years' time, that £100 will probably be £75. But in your property, inherently over the last 100 years, property prices continually rise. Yes, they have blips, yes, they have dips. And the last major correction in price was back in 2008 after the credit crunch. And that was down to mainly irresponsible lending. But lending's changed a lot now. Lending's much more robust, isn't it? Based upon affordability and various other things. So we shouldn't see something quite like that. But the acceleration in price of late is unsustainable and, dare I say, unhealthy. Very much been taken, I think, from the back of the stamp duty holiday, which I think we've still got the hangover from. So the stamp duty holiday was introduced in July 2020 on the back of coming out of the first lockdown. The market was really hot anyway, and 2 months after we went back to work, Rishi Sunak poured a load more fuel on the fire, and it really exploded by giving people the opportunity to buy up to £500,000 and not pay any stamp duty. What that invariably did was, buyers who were prepared to pay £400,000 would then offer 410 because they were saving 10 grand on stamp duty, and that 10 grand actually went into the seller's pocket, dare I say, but they needed that to be able to buy the next one and so on and so forth. What it also did is it accelerated plans. So people who planned to move in late 21 or early 22 or late 22 ended up moving in late 20, early 21, and that's where we are now. We've had a real drought of listings in the Grantham area and the whole of the country, based upon the fact that people moved their plans forward. You can't then just pull people forward and expect a whole load of new people to come in and fill that gap. It doesn't work like that. Of late, we are starting to see some change in the market, I think. And if I can put it this way, 100 buyers at January, when interest rates were still low and there was no conflict in the Ukraine, and fuel prices were still £4 a day to heat your house rather than £10 a day to heat your house. There was a lot of differences there. And as we look at that 100 now, it's probably not 100 anymore, it's probably 60, 65. So there's definitely a little bit of cooling from the buyer's perspective. And what that's doing is it's bringing more property to the market. And that actually answers one of the other questions we've got. But in my mind, good growth in the market isn't 10% a year. That's unhealthy. The only way a balloon goes when it accelerates too quickly is pop. But steady growth, 2, 3, 4% per annum, is to be expected. And coming back to the question, I think your money in your house, provided the extension is done considerately, provided it's done so it feels like it should be there, and it's adding real livable space to your home, and you've got to think about the way we work now, like home offices and garden cabins and all these sorts of things, will definitely, I think, have a more positive effect. And your £100 then in 5 years' time in your house will probably be worth £120, not 75. So I think that answers that question. But the cost of materials is high, the rarity of materials is high. Tradespeople have never been busier, so they can be a little bit more picky and choosy over the jobs they take on. And my advice, again, we're looking to extend at some point not too far away. I need to get my builder secured now for next year, for this time next year. So you need to be thinking about these things probably 6 months minimum, 12 months likely, 18 months in advance of when you're actually going to take these things on. Hope that answers your question. The second question was, I hope you're here because you did say you were hoping to be there to watch. I noticed there aren't too many houses for sale in the 280 to 400 bracket, 280,000 to 400,000 pound bracket. Why is this? There seems to be a lot of expensive homes, so that's north of 400, and quite a lot up to the 280 mark. And can you also talk about chain building and how it works? We can, but there's a reason for that. So the 280 to 400 sector, it is short supplied. It's getting better. There's definitely a bit more listing activity in this last 2-3 weeks or so, certainly post Easter. But that's traditionally when the housing market starts to increase in volumes of numbers of listings when we go past Easter. But look at it this way: when there's a shortage of property on the market, most of your families who live in those 3-bedroom detached houses up to 4-bedroom detached houses in that price point of 280 to 400 haven't been able to see the house that they want to move up to, which is bigger, or the house that they want to downsize from when they're at the top end of that scale, because the properties that have been coming to the market have been selling too quickly. Usually people bring the house to the market because they find something they want and it gives them a drive and a motivation to sort of act on that. But of late, they've not been able to do that. You know, I hear of agents who won't take people out on viewings unless they're sole subject contract or no chain. But actually, I think as agents, we've got a responsibility to encourage people who aren't on the market just yet to keep viewing. Because if we can do that, they will find what they want. They will bring their own house to the market. Then we start alleviating the problem and creating more stock between 280 and 400,000 pounds. There's also a lot of people in family homes for 20 years who are at the 400,000 pound-ish sector of price, but they can't find the bungalow or whatever it is they want to downsize to on the market. So they just sit in this large house for a period of time. And you know, from a financial perspective, it's not a bad thing to do, because a £400,000 house growing by 10% versus a £200,000 house growing by 10%, fiscally it makes a lot more sense to sit in that £400,000 house for a little bit longer. The last part of the question was about chain building. Chain building is, agents would look at this way. You know, they've got client A who's got a £200,000 house to sell and they want to buy a £300,000 house, and this client B has got a £300,000 house. So they send client A round to view it, they like it, and then they say, okay, well, let's see if we can keep this one off the market for a little while, let's sell this one and build that chain in that respect. However, and there is a however, I'll always give you straight answers, you can't be sure then, as the £300,000 seller, that you have definitely got the best price in the marketplace today because you've not exposed it to the bigger, wider audience. The job of an agent isn't about defining price. The job of an agent actually is to be a marketeer, a good marketeer of property, and utilise many, many different platforms to do so. Not just Rightmove and Zoopla, not photographs with an iPhone. It's about marketing that. You get one chance to market that house, one chance and one chance only. And you've got to do it right from the get-go. Because if you do that right, the interest will come. Then you end up in a competitive environment with several buyers wanting your home, and that's where best price is achieved.
Yeah.
God, sorry, I could rant on about that for ages. But hopefully that answers both those questions. But if you have got any questions, you know, you can drop them into the chat. If you...
I've actually got a question.
Hello there. We've just answered your question. Thank you very much for tuning in.
I've got a question.
Go on then.
So, buy-to-let landlords, okay? So, how do you see the market in Grantham for buy-to-let landlords over the next sort of, 3 to 5 years, really, especially with the EPC changes that are going to be coming in? What are your thoughts on how it'll impact landlords of Grantham?
So I'll start on something. I read a statistic today. I've got your problem now. That suggests in the last 5 years, 220,000 rental properties across the UK are no longer rental properties.
Wow.
So we've immediately got a massive shortfall of rental stock. The problem, again, like with house prices, rental prices have rocketed because landlords are generally selling out rather than buying in. For many, many decades, being a landlord was it was a bit of a cash cow, wasn't it? It was an easy ride.
Yeah.
But legislation's changed dramatically. You know, letting agents now have hundreds of points of legislation to deal with, and they've got to then get the landlord on side with that as well.
Yeah.
The biggest change of late in terms of rental properties is rental properties now have to have an energy performance rating of E or higher. But in 2025, I think it's guaranteed it will be C or higher. I think if you look at your average landlord of Grantham, they typically own huge volumes of Victorian terraced housing, in the town centre on the outskirts of town. The majority of which I see the EPCs are only really up to E or maybe D.
Yeah.
getting them to a C grade involves some quite heavy investment. I think that the typical avatar of a Grantham landlord is slightly on the change. I think they do now look at more modern property.
Yeah.
Because if you buy a Victorian terraced house today that is an E rating or a D rating, what are you going to do to improve it? How much are you going to have to spend to improve it to a C rating to be able to keep it as a rental property?
Absolutely. Yeah.
The byproduct of that problem could well be a delf of lots of rental property coming to the market that is that typical Victorian type property. And what happens when you put loads of stock into the marketplace? The prices suffer. So it will be an interesting time, I think, over the next 3 years particularly.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
No, I mean, my thoughts are exactly the same. As you know, I'm a buy-to-let landlord myself in Grantham, and I would be put off, actually, buying an older sort of Victorian type property because of what you've just described there. So I think there's going to be an influx of properties to the market.
Yeah.
Which obviously don't satisfy the EPC requirements.
I think it might be a bit of a generational change. Again, going back to it, a lot of landlords would buy a Victorian house, and at the time they could buy a Victorian house with no stamp duty surcharge that they have now. But a lot of landlords who were traditional landlords, maybe portfolio landlords with large numbers, again, they've seen that as being a stopper, a hurdle to getting into the marketplace. But for many years, when the credit crunch came, and we talked about that briefly earlier, in 2009, 10, 11, 12, landlords almost replaced first-time buyers. They were the people building chains at the bottom, buying the first property as an investor with no chain to release them to be able to buy onto the bigger home that they needed. But I think there is a bit of a dimensional change. With rents moving up as they have done, the yields now are still pretty strong, even though prices have risen. But I'm seeing it a lot with some of the more entry-level properties where there'll be probably just as many, probably more first-time buyers on it than investors. But investors are definitely out there, but they're a new breed of investor who just accept the fact that that is the game they've got to play. Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting to see over the course of the next few years.
Absolutely.
How that all develops.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I don't think so. No.
Great.
No.
Well, look, if you've got any questions about anything to do with Grantham and the property market and the mortgage market of the area, you can get in touch. You can drop me a DM into my inbox. Obviously, you're all watching this on Facebook, so if you're on Facebook, please send me a DM. Just find me by searching Tony Ruby or Tony Ruby, Grantham's personal estate agent, which is my business page. Jonathan is Jonathan Saint, and you can drop him a message directly as well. And if you want me to pass you on to Jonathan, again, it's easy, just get in touch with myself. But can't thank you enough for watching, for those that have, and hopefully you found some value in there and something's been answered. But we're planning to do probably one of these every month or so. I think it's important that we try to keep people up to date with how the property market's going. It's the first one today. It might have been complete tosh, but if it has been, I'm sorry for wasting your time on a Friday evening. But just want to say, enjoy the bank holiday weather. Hopefully it stays like this for the weekend. It's my little boy's 4th birthday over this weekend as well, so I'm looking forward to enjoying a bit of time with him and seeing his face when he opens some presents. And what have you got on this weekend, Jonathan?
What have I got on? Not a lot really, just enjoying the weather, I think.
Okay, you're out with me tomorrow morning, aren't you, on a block booking of viewings at East Thorpe, which is an informal tender property that if you need any detail, just drop me a message. But we're there tomorrow morning. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you at some point very soon.
Yeah, thanks for watching, everyone.
Cheers.